If you believe becoming a millionaire is reserved for CEOs, tech founders, or people earning six figures, then I need to challenge that idea right away. Because the truth is that some of the quietest millionaires lived lives you would have completely overlooked. Let me tell you about someone most people never noticed. His name was Daniel Harper. For over 40 years, Daniel worked as a maintenance technician in a small Ohio town. He fixed broken pipes, unclogged drains, and spent his days in boiler rooms that most people avoided. His clothes were always simple. His car? A 12-year-old sedan with a dent on the side he never bothered fixing. Nothing about him signaled wealth. When Daniel passed away at 88, the town expected a modest funeral. Instead, something unexpected happened. When his estate was opened, it revealed something nobody could believe. Daniel Harper had quietly built a portfolio worth over $9 million. No business, no inheritance, no lottery win. Just one man, earning an average salary, making decisions that almost no one around him understood. Welcome back to Money Made Simple. I spend way too much time thinking about simplifying money and breaking down money to the simplest form. If you are someone who feels like you are working harder every single year, but your bank balance never seems to go up, hit that subscribe button, and Daniel isn't the only one. There was also Melissa Grant. She worked as an administrative assistant in a public school system for nearly 3 decades. She packed her lunch every day, rarely took vacations, and lived in the same small apartment for years. People assumed she was just getting by, but when she passed, she left behind over $11 million. Most of it donated to local education programs. 2 ordinary lives, 2 extraordinary outcomes. And here's what makes these stories important. They aren't rare accidents, they are the visible result of a pattern. A pattern that most people ignore because it doesn't look exciting, fast, or impressive. So today, I'm going to walk you through what people like Daniel and Melissa actually did. Not theories, not hype, just the real sequence of decisions that quietly turns average income into real wealth. But before we get into actions, we need to fix something deeper, because if your psychology is wrong, no strategy will work. Let's start with the first shift. You have to completely eliminate the belief that low income makes wealth impossible. Daniel never earned more than what today would be around $38,000 a year. That's it. No sudden jumps, no massive promotions. And yet, he ended up with millions. Why? Because wealth is not about how much money flows in. It's about what you do with what stays. Let me make this simple. Imagine 2 people. One earns $220,000 a year but spends almost all of it trying to maintain a lifestyle that looks successful. At the end of the year, maybe they keep $5,000. Now, take someone earning $45,000 a year, but they live intentionally. They keep $8,000, $10,000, and invest it consistently. Who do you think wins after 20 or 30 years? It's not even close. The second person isn't just saving, they're building something that compounds. That brings us to the second psychological trap. Waiting because the amount feels too small. This is where most people lose years of progress without even realizing it. They think, what difference will $50 make? So they do nothing. But here's what they don't see. Time is more powerful than size. Let's say someone starts investing a small amount early in life. That small, almost forgettable contribution, given enough time, turns into something significant. Not because the amount was big, but because it was consistent. Now compare that to someone who waits. They invest more money later, but they've already lost the one thing they can never recover: time. And time is where compounding does its real work. Simple. Start before you feel ready. Start before it feels meaningful. Start even if it feels almost pointless. Because consistency over time turns pointless into powerful. Now that we've reset the mindset, let's move into action. Because thinking differently only matters if you act differently. The first step is something almost nobody does properly. Assign every dollar a job. Most people don't lose money in big, dramatic decisions. They lose it quietly, small purchases, random spending, things that don't feel like a big deal, until the month ends and the money is gone. Daniel didn't let that happen. Every dollar he earned already had a purpose before it was spent. Rent, food, savings, investments. Nothing was left floating, because floating money gets spent. This approach is called zero-based budget, and it's not about restriction. It's about awareness. For the next 30 days, track everything, not to judge yourself, but to see clearly. Because once you see the pattern, you can change it. And once you change it, everything starts to shift. The second step is where most people go wrong. They save what's left. But here's the problem. There's usually nothing left. Daniel flipped this completely. He invested first, before spending, before lifestyle, before anything else. The moment money came in, when a portion of it was already gone, moved into investments. For most people starting out, that might be 10%, maybe less if things are tight. But the key isn't the percentage, it's the priority. Because when you invest first, you force your lifestyle to adjust. And after a few months, that new lifestyle starts to feel normal. What once felt like sacrifice becomes routine. And routine is where real progress lives. Now here's where things get uncomfortable. Step 3. Live like you have less than you actually do. This is where Daniel separated himself from everyone around him. When his income increased even slightly, he didn't upgrade his life. He didn't move to a bigger house, didn't buy a newer car, didn't chase appearances. He stayed exactly the same. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. This is what I call strategic simplicity. Living below your means on purpose. So your future has options. Because every time you upgrade your lifestyle, you reduce your ability to build wealth. And most people upgrade too early. They increase spending the moment income increases, which means they stay stuck at the same level, just with better looking expenses. Daniel did the opposite. Every raise, every extra dollar went into investments. And over time, those small decisions stacked into something nobody expected. From the outside, it looked like nothing was happening. But underneath, everything was changing, and that's the part most people miss. Wealth doesn't look impressive while it's being built. It looks boring, quiet, almost invisible, until one day, it isn't. Now, here's where most people assume the story ends. Spend less, invest more, wait. And yes, that works. But if that's all you do, the process can feel painfully slow, especially if your income is limited. Daniel understood something else. Something that made the difference between eventually comfortable and financially free. Step 4. Increase your value. Because there is a ceiling to how far saving alone can take you. Daniel didn't just save. He paid attention. Every job he worked, every task he handled, he treated it like training. He learned how systems worked, how problems happened, how to fix things faster than others. Over time, he became the person people relied on. Not because of his job title, but because of his capability. And here's what most people miss. The market doesn't pay you for your time. It pays you for the value you create. Two people can work the same number of hours. But the ones solving more important problems will always earn more. So instead of asking, how can I work more? Ask something better. What can I learn that makes me harder to replace? In today's world, that answer is everywhere. Skills like digital marketing, sales, video editing, automation, AI tools, these aren't locked behind expensive degrees anymore. They're available to anyone willing to spend time learning. Even 1 to 2 hours a day, compounded over a year, can completely change your income potential. And here's the real advantage. Most people won't do it. They'll stay where they are because it feels familiar, which means if you commit, you're already ahead. Now let's take it one step further. Step 5. Build more than one income stream. This is where things start to accelerate. Because relying on a single income is like trying to fill a bucket with one small stream of water. It works, but it's slow. Daniel's investments didn't just grow in value, they started producing income. Dividends. Small at first, almost unnoticeable, but over time they grew. And eventually, they became a second stream. Money coming in, without him trading time for it. That's when things begin to shift. Because now, you're not just earning, you're earning and being paid for what you already built. And you can go even further. A side skill, a small service, freelance work, something that brings in extra income, that doesn't depend on your main job. Here's the key most people get wrong. They use that extra money to upgrade their lifestyle. Instead, invest it. Every dollar from a second stream becomes fuel. Fuel for your future. Over time, you begin to see a pattern. Almost every self-made millionaire has multiple income sources, not all at once, but built gradually. Primary income, investment income, side income, sometimes even content or royalties, each one stacking on top of the other, reducing risk, increasing growth, and most importantly, giving you options. Now, there's something else you need to understand, because even with the right steps, most people still fail, not because they don't know what to do, but because of the environment around them. Your behavior is shaped more by your surroundings than your intentions. If everyone around you spends freely, you'll feel pressure to do the same. If people normalize debt, it starts to feel normal. If no one talks about investing, it feels distant, complicated, unnecessary. That's not an accident. That's influence. Daniel didn't have a circle of investors, but he had distance from noise. He wasn't trying to keep up with anyone. He wasn't chasing approval through spending. And that gave him an advantage most people don't realize they need. Today, you have something even more powerful. Access. You can choose what influences you. Books, podcasts, communities, people who treat saving and investing like progress. Not sacrifice, because when your environment changes, your behavior follows. And when your behavior changes, your results become predictable. Now let's talk about the mistakes, because avoiding the wrong moves is just as important as making the right ones. The first mistake, blaming everything outside your control. Yes, the system isn't perfect. Costs are rising. Opportunities aren't equal. Some people start ahead. That's reality. But here's the problem. Focusing on what you can't control steals energy from what you can. You can't control the economy, but you can control your spending. You can control your habits. You can control whether you invest consistently or not. Daniel couldn't control his income ceiling, but he controlled everything that happened after he got paid. And that made all the difference. Second mistake, choosing comfort over growth. This is subtle because comfort feels safe. A stable job, predictable routine, familiar environment. But if that comfort isn't building anything, it becomes a trap. There are two paths most people face. One pays more now, but teaches you nothing. The other pays less, but builds skills that increase your future value. Most people take the first because it feels like progress. But over time, they hit a ceiling. The second path feels slower, uncertain, sometimes even like a step backward. But years later, that's the path that creates leverage. That's the path that changes your trajectory. And finally, the third mistake, staying inside your comfort zone. Everything we've talked about requires some level of discomfort. Starting to invest, tracking your spending, learning something new, changing your habits. At first, it feels unnatural, awkward, even unnecessary. And once it becomes normal, it becomes part of who you are. The people who build wealth aren't fearless. They just act before they feel ready. And that action expands what they're capable of. Now let's come back to Daniel, because his story isn't about luck. It's not about genius. And it's definitely not about earning more than everyone else. It's about something far simpler and far more difficult: consistency. He didn't try to impress anyone, didn't chase status, didn't look for shortcuts. He just followed a set of behaviors over and over for decades. And while the world around him kept chasing quick wins, he stayed focused on slow growth, quiet growth, invisible progress, until one day, it isn't invisible anymore. Here's the truth. Most people don't want to hear there's no secret formula, no hidden trick, no moment where everything suddenly changes. It's just a sequence of decisions, repeated long enough that the results become unavoidable. And the ending? It's not just about millions, it's about something bigger. Freedom. The freedom to choose how you live. The freedom to say no. The freedom to not depend on a paycheck to survive. Daniel didn't look rich, but he lived on his own terms long before anyone realized what he had built. And that's the real goal. Not to look wealthy, but to become someone who quietly owns their time, their choices, and their future. You don't need a six-figure salary. You don't need to be extraordinary. You just need to start. Stay consistent and give time a chance to work in your favor. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next video. Subscribe to Money Made Simple, and I will see you in the next one.